Have you ever woken up in your own home only to feel like a stranger? The dining table overflowing with noisy laughter, the bedroom taken over as a live stream studio, and everyone looking at you as if you were an invisible old man. I once believed that blood ties would never turn away. But when my former son-in-law marched a whole crowd straight into the seaside villa I had built and declared, "From now on, this is our communal home," I realized sometimes the invaders do not come from across the sea, but walk right through your front door. Before I continue with the full truth behind this reversal, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell and tell me where you are listening from. Your support is what drives me to keep telling the things so many want buried. My fingers still carried the scent of pine wood from the carton I just opened when the afternoon sun poured down across the oak floor of the new villa. This house, resting on the soft sands of Amelia Island, Florida, was the dream I had carried for more than 40 years. After thousands of heart surgeries, endless overnight shifts in the freezing operating room, I had thought the final reward of my life would simply be the sound of steady waves and a peaceful roof over my head. I had just sat down a glass of Cabernet on the granite bar, ready to sink into the long chair for the first quiet moment, when the phone suddenly rang. The sharp, piercing sound cut through the half-empty room like shattering glass. On the screen appeared the name that made my chest tighten: Martin Keene. I hesitated for a beat, then picked up. Before I could speak, his voice flooded in thick with commands. "Leo, listen. We're on the way. About 18 people, family and friends. You get the beds ready, towels, slippers, food, everything. We'll be staying 3 weeks. Oh, Clara needs the master bedroom for her morning videos. It has the right light. The cars are already rolling. 45 minutes in, we'll be there." I froze. Each word fell into my ears like a cold scalpel. But instead of saving, it carved into my pride. 18 people, 3 weeks. At the villa, I had only been there for less than a week. "Martin," I tried to steady my voice. "I'm still unpacking. Boxes everywhere. Sheets not even laid. The house isn't ready for that many guests. Maybe next month." "No," he cut me off. "Curt as a door latch. You're retired now. Nothing to keep you busy. If you have the money for a villa, you have the space. Simple as that. Don't make it a big deal." I could hear the roar of engines and raucous laughter behind him. A convoy was racing forward like an army preparing to storm another man's fortress, and Martin, like a smug general, didn't care about my presence or consent. The line went dead, leaving behind a suffocating silence. I gripped the phone, the same hand that had held a scalpel, steady before countless chests. Now trembling not from fear, but from rage, my eyes turned to the photo on the mantel. Evelyn, my daughter, taken from me in a car accident 3 years ago. Her smile was still as gentle as ever, her eyes seeming to look right at me. I remembered that stormy night at St. Mary's Hospital, the night fate took Evelyn. The ICU gleamed white, the smell of antiseptic drowning the air. Evelyn lay there, hair damp with sweat plastered to the pillow, her eyes weak but still shining when they met mine. Beside the bed, little Sophie, only 3 years old, slept clutching the hem of my coat. Evelyn's lips trembled, her voice breaking. "Dad, if I don't make it, please take care of Sophie. Martin, he's still so unsteady. I'm afraid he won't manage alone. Dad, promise me." I held my daughter's hand, the same hand that once clutched my white coat when she was born. Now it grew cold, but her eyes pleaded as if trying to entrust her whole life into one request. I bent down, kissed her forehead too, and whispered through tears, "I promise Sophie will always have her grandfather." 3 days later, Evelyn was gone. The wounds from the accident too severe. Death came too swiftly, too cruel, leaving a hollow nothingness in me. And in that void only Sophie remained, the last drop of Evelyn's blood, the living proof she had once been here. From then on, Sophie was everything to me. I cared for her each weekend, picked her up from school when Martin was busy. I taught her the first letter A. She was her only audience when she sang in the bathtub. Every time Sophie laughed, I caught a glimpse of Evelyn. That was why I was so easily swayed whenever Martin used Sophie as his excuse. "Leo," for the first time, Martin's voice cracked. Sophie is about to start preschool. There's a private academy near us. They teach music, languages. She'd be treated like a princess, but tuition is high. I know you promised Evelyn you'd take care of her. Please let Sophie have the start she deserves. I didn't hesitate. A silent wire of $12,000 left my account. Later, when Martin lost his job, he called again, his tone weak and pitiful. I don't need anything for myself, Leo. But Sophie, she's growing every day. She asks why there's no strawberry yogurt anymore. Why dinner is just boxed mac and cheese. Do you want your granddaughter asking that forever? Evelyn would be heartbroken. I sat frozen. My heart clenched. Once more, I transferred $8,000. Clara, Martin's new wife, quickly learned that weakness. She always began with a soft smile. Mr. Leonard, I just discovered Sophie has a gift for piano. Her eyes shine when her fingers touch the toy keys. But how can her talent grow without a real instrument? Surely you wouldn't want your granddaughter's gift wasted, would you? Another time, Clara sent a text with a photo of Sophie in a worn-out dress. Today she cried because her classmates laughed at her torn clothes. Do you want Sophie to carry shame from childhood? I know Evelyn would never have let that happen. And I, foolish old man, blinded by love for my granddaughter, signed another check. The truth only became clear one day when I stumbled on Clara's Instagram. She and Martin lounging on the deck of a yacht in the Bahamas, orange cocktails glowing in the sun. That very day, my phone buzzed. Leo, Sophie needs money for extra school books. Please don't let her fall behind her friends. You want her to be proud of her grandfather, don't you? I knew I was being deceived, but when Sophie ran into my arms and whispered, "Grandpa is Sophie's hero," my heart melted. I wired the money again. And so, over 6 years, nearly $300,000 disappeared. Martin no longer came to me with thanks. He came with sweetly wrapped pleas, soaked in calculation. You don't want Sophie disappointed in you, do you? You wouldn't let your granddaughter live lacking when you can give her the whole world. Each question was a rope tightening around my chest. There was a time when Sophie sat in my lap, dabbed chocolate on my cheek with her finger, and giggled. Grandpa is Sophie's hero. I held her tight, my eyes stinging. I wanted to believe that. Everything I did, every dollar I spent was only so I could hear that phrase again. But deep down I knew the ones truly benefiting were not Sophie. It was Martin and Clara, those who had turned my love for my granddaughter into a bottomless wallet. And today, when Martin declared he was bringing 18 people to the villa, I saw his true face more clearly than ever. He was not only trespassing on my home, but also on the love I carried for Evelyn and for Sophie. He knew it would be hard for me to refuse because I feared Sophie being caught in the conflict. But this time I was no longer sure I could keep yielding. Outside, the waves still whispered against the shore. In front of me, Evelyn's photo still smiled gently, and I heard in memory her voice. Dad, protect Sophie, but don't let anyone exploit that love. I closed my eyes, my heart trembling. For the first time in years, I felt ready not only to keep my promise, but also to set limits to it. Evelyn had once begged, Dad, Martin just needs one more chance. He will change. And I, with the heart of a doctor, always believed in recovery. I had revived hearts that had stopped beating. So why could I not heal the flawed heart of one man? But some illnesses cannot be cured with a scalpel, and today I knew for certain. Martin's greed and disdain for others were cancers that had already spread too deep. Beyond the window, the sea glittered under the sunset. I had thought my remaining days would be tied only to the sound of waves and the salty wind. Yet now the house that was supposed to be my sanctuary was about to be turned into a free hotel for 18 noisy intruders. I drew a deep breath, steadying my trembling. 45 minutes. That was all the time I had to decide. Part of me whispered, let it be. Let them come. Peace is better. But another part, firm, unyielding, the voice of a man who had once decided between life and death in the operating room, thundered, Enough, Leonard. All your life you've endured, stepped back. But this house, this life is yours. No one has the right to steal it. I walked into the study. The walnut desk drawer slid open, revealing the deed to the villa. The notary stamp still shining in green ink. Holding it, I felt a strange certainty. If Martin thought he could treat this place as his private resort, then it was time he learned that I, not him, was the one who set the rules here. That afternoon, Amelia Island's sky spread a pale golden light, the ocean breeze pushing salt air into every window. I had just set Evelyn's frame back on the mantel when the engines rumbled in the distance, at first faint, then swelling into a thick wave of sound. I pulled the curtain aside in the study. Along the winding drive to the villa, white dust clouds rose behind the wheels. Not one car, but an entire convoy. Black SUVs, silver minivans, a pickup loaded with gear. The fleet looked like an army about to pitch camp on conquered land. In seconds, the front yard, where I had imagined only Sophie and I would play under the moonlight, was packed with cars. Doors slammed, children shouted, and adults called each other across the chaos. The first SUV opened and Martin stepped out, the same swagger. Polo shirt tight across his chest, sunglasses gleaming, walking like a man who had just won a battle. Clara followed, blonde hair streaming in the sea breeze, phone raised instantly, live streaming. "Guys, we've just arrived at my father-in-law's gorgeous villa. Look, ocean view real estate, true luxury." I bit my lip. Father-in-law. That word sounded foreign from Clara's mouth. Evelyn had not been gone long, and yet here she was, a travel vlogger, turning my villa into her personal studio. The back door opened and Sophie leapt down in a pink dress, clutching her teddy bear. She ran to me. "Grandpa," I bent down, pulled her into my arms. That embrace softened my heart for a moment. But then the flood came. Martin's friends, Clara's distant cousins, faces I had never seen. They dragged suitcases, bags, crates of beer, and steaming pizza boxes. Laughter and chatter boomed, drowning even the sea. "Wow, Leonard, you live fancy." A young man I had never met exclaimed, slapping my shoulder like we were old friends. "A house this big has more than enough room for everyone." No one waited for my invitation. They moved as if entering a hotel. A young couple dropped their luggage in the living room and casually slipped off their sandy shoes onto my Persian rug. A child ran straight to the backyard, diving into the pool, water splashing across the limestone deck. I tried to keep my tone steady. "Martin, I told you on the phone the house isn't ready. I can't." He laughed, throwing an arm around my shoulder like he was explaining something to a stubborn elder. "Come on, Leo, this is family. Family doesn't need an invitation." Clara already promised her sisters they could film yoga videos here, and I said Sophie could sleep in the room next to the master, so you'd be right there with her. "That works out, doesn't it?" Clara slipped in, her voice sweet as honey, but her eyes sharp. "Mr. Leonard, the light in the master bedroom is perfect. I only need it in the mornings. Surely you won't mind. My million followers will adore this villa, and of course you'll get the spotlight too." I stood frozen. The master bedroom, the space I had guarded as sacred, where Evelyn's photo hung, now treated as just a prop for showing off. On the kitchen counter, someone had cracked open the beer crate. Cans clattering, another blasted rap from a Bluetooth speaker shaking the marble walls. Pizza boxes spread open, the smell of cheese flooding the pristine kitchen I had wanted to keep untouched. My eyes turned to Sophie. She was laughing, pizza in hand, cheese smeared on her lips. Her innocent gaze made my chest tighten. That innocence confused me. If I objected, would she think her grandfather hated her father's friends? Martin saw my hesitation and leaned in, his whisper sharp enough for me alone. "Leo, you don't want to make Sophie sad, do you? She's been excited about this all week. Don't ruin your granddaughter's holiday. Evelyn would want her happy too." My ears filled with the pounding of my heart, like a monitor's alarm when a patient flatlines. I knew this tactic, Martin using Evelyn and Sophie as his shield again. Yet here I was, alone in my own house, feeling like a surgeon being forced to operate without a team. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Clara, live stream the pool. Show the fans." The mob rushed to the backyard. Water splashed, voices echoed. I stood in my own home, feeling like a stranger shoved outside its walls. My eyes landed on Evelyn's photo on the mantel, shoved aside to make room for a beer can. I hurried to lift it, wiping away the condensation. In her gentle smile, I heard her voice again. "Dad, protect Sophie." I clutched the frame. The waves outside still pounded, but inside me a storm was rising. I strode quickly down the oak-floored hallway, sunlight slanting through tall windows. The laughter roared, but Clara's voice cut through above it all. "Martin, the light here is perfect. I'll set the tripod by the glass, film my morning yoga, guaranteed 1 million views." The master bedroom door, my most sacred space, was flung wide. Clara strolled in, phone raised, camera sweeping across the cream walls, and the king bed I had just dressed in white sheets. Clara. My voice cameo but firm. No one is allowed in this room. This is my private space. Clara froze a moment, then turned to Martin with a smile edged in contempt. Did you hear that? The old man still thinks this villa is his alone. Martin immediately stepped forward, one hand pressing down on my shoulder, the weight of it like a clamp. Leo, come on. Don't be so selfish. This room is just 4 walls. But Sophie, she needs to see the whole family together. Clara only wants to create beautiful memories for herself. Are you really going to forbid that? I shook his hand off, my palm burning. Martin, I've made myself clear. This room is private. Evelyn, her image is still here. I don't want anyone touching it. Clara let out a syrupy laugh, her eyes icy. Oh, so you still keep that frame? How touching. But Martin lost his wife, and you can't cling to the past forever. We have to move on. The words pierced my chest like a cold blade. Evelyn was never the past. She lived in every breath I took. In every smile Sophie made. I tightened my grip on the doorframe, blocking anyone from stepping further. I'll repeat myself. This room, no one comes in. Behind me I heard hurried footsteps. A group of Martin's friends had gathered, beer cans in hand, slurring voices. What's going on? Don't make it a big deal. Family vacation means sharing rooms, that's all. Yeah, a house this big. Why keep a room locked? It's not a hotel. Their chorus made the air heavier. I felt cornered alone against a crowd. Martin smirked, leaning close to my face. Leo, do you want Sophie to see her grandpa angry driving the family away? Evelyn would be so disappointed. I looked straight into his eyes, my voice dropping, each word striking like metal on stone. Never use Evelyn's name to coerce me. In that instant, the hallway fell silent. Clara blinked and edged back. Martin only gave a dry laugh to smother his unease. You're making this bigger than it is. Have you forgotten who cared for Sophie when you were busy at conferences? Busy playing golf? I'm the one with her every day. Show some sense. Rage climbed to my throat. I wanted to shout that I was the one who promised Evelyn to care for Sophie, that every dollar and every sacrifice was for the child. But Sophie came running from the living room just then, clutching her teddy bear, her eyes wide. Grandpa, what's happening? I stopped, her clear gaze laid bare the adult's conflict. I didn't want her to witness a blazing fight between her father and her grandpa. I swallowed my anger and smoothed her hair. It's okay, sweetheart. Go play downstairs. Sophie looked around, then obediently ran off. Her small figure disappeared, leaving a still emptiness. I turned back, my voice cold as ice. All of you out of this room now. Martin folded his arms, face flushed, but still putting on a superior tone. If you insist, fine. We'll take another room. But don't blame me if Sophie asks why her grandpa is so distant from family. He jerked his head at Clara. She pouted but pulled the suitcase away. Their friends trailed after them, grumbling as they went. When the master door clicked shut, I leaned against it, sweat beading on my brow. I knew this was only the beginning. Martin had backed off for show, but the sharp challenge in his eyes as he left told me the real confrontation lay ahead. I glanced at the bedside table where Evelyn's frame stood firm. In the slanting sunset, my daughter's smile seemed to say, Dad, don't back down. Music from the Bluetooth speaker thumped through the walls, a jumble of laughter mixing with the roar of the pool. The villa I had dreamed of as a refuge had turned into a noisy clubhouse. Clara led a pack down the hall, filming and cackling. Look, everyone, isn't this space amazing? This is where we'll host tomorrow night's party. I stood in the study and closed the door. The noise outside still seeped in, but dulled. In the walnut-lined room, everything remained orderly. Shelves of medical texts, a heavy wooden desk, and a small safe hidden in the lower cabinet. I opened the safe and pulled out a black leather folder. Inside was everything. Bank statements, copies of checks, transfer receipts. I had kept them from demanding repayment, but out of habit, the same carefulness with which I charted every cardiac surgery, I spread the documents across the desk. The figures danced. $12,000 for preschool tuition, $8,000 for living expenses when Martin was unemployed, $15,000 for car repairs, $65,000 for a house deposit, then larger sums, $90,000 for Evelyn's medical bills. Altogether, nearly $300,000. Each number was a slice through memory. I recalled Martin's voice in every call, sometimes trembling as if on the verge of tears, sometimes sweetly invoking Evelyn, sometimes blunt. You have money. You have to provide for your granddaughter. I closed my eyes and drew a long breath. For so long, I had let myself be led by sentimental words. But today, after watching Clara live stream in the Master, I knew if I stayed silent, they would turn this villa into a permanent base. And Sophie, the child I loved most, would grow up believing that pushing and demanding were the only ways to be loved. A knock startled me. I hurried to stack the documents and slipped them beneath a pile of medical journals. The door opened and Sophie peeked in, teddy in hand. "Grandpa, why are you here alone?" "They're playing Uno downstairs. It's so fun." I smiled, pulled her close, and set her on my lap. "I still have a bit of work, but remember, this room is only for Grandpa and you." Sophie nodded solemnly, then planted a quick kiss on my cheek before running off. The door shut, leaving a breathable quiet. I opened my laptop and logged into my email. In my contacts, a familiar name appeared. Rachel Harper, legal counsel since Evelyn passed. She had helped me finalize the transfer of the old house. Cautious, taciturn, razor sharp. I typed slowly. "Rachel, I need an urgent meeting. The situation concerns my former son-in-law and his new wife. They are trespassing and may cause reputational harm. I have complete financial records proving exploitation over 6 years. Please arrange the earliest possible time." The cursor blinked over send. I paused, inhaled deeply, then exited without sending, not out of hesitation, but because I wanted more time to gather irrefutable evidence so they'd have no escape. Outside, the music suddenly shifted to blaring American rap. I caught someone shouting, "Clara, order more pizza. Leonard will cover it all." The laughter that followed made my blood boil. I stepped into the hall. Martin's friends were spreading, towels over the sofa, pizza boxes piled high, beer cans crowding the glass table. A stranger leaned back with his feet up, sandy shoes smearing dirt. "Feet off the table," I said, my voice flat and cold. The guy arched an eyebrow and sneered. "Relax, man. It's a family party. You're rich. What's one table?" Martin jumped in, draping an arm over me with fake cheer. "Don't be so uptight. Old folks need fun. We'll bring this house to life." I slipped free of his arm, eyes steady. "This is my home, not a resort. I've said that once already." The air sagged. Clara curled her lip, took a sip from her cocktail, then turned her phone toward me. "See, everyone? Grandpa is such a grump. Don't worry, we'll get him used to it." Laughter burst again. I felt myself reduced to a prop in their little show. Instead of arguing, I pivoted back to the study and shut the door. Night fell, the villa still ablaze with light. Music, laughter, children's shrieks, endless. I sat alone in the study, desk lamp shining over the open file. I added a new page, the cover from an old patient chart I'd kept from the hospital. On it, I wrote by hand, Case Martin and Clara Keene. Pattern of exploitation. 2017 startup loan, $50,000. 2018 wedding, $30,000. 2019 house down payment, $65,000. 2020 medical bills for Evelyn, $90,000. 2021 job loss household, $8,000. 2022 car repair, $15,000. 2023 Sophie's tuition, $12,000, total about $300,000. Each line was a cut into flesh, but instead of blood, it bled truth. I checked the clock near midnight beyond the window. The sea murmured moonlight laying a path across the water. I closed my eyes and breathed deep in my ears, rose the faint beep. Beep beep of a monitor in the operating room. The sound of life. Tomorrow I will begin the greatest operation of my life. Not to save a patient's heart, but to save my own and Sophie's future. That night, the villa blazed like a fairground. Rap music rattled every window frame. Colored lights flickered from the portable speakers they brought, and the smell of beer mixed with greasy cold pizza. I shut the study tight, but every sound outside still pierced the wooden walls like the arrhythmic heartbeat of a patient before a myocardial infarction. I opened a drawer and took out the old backup phone I used to take notes at the hospital. Today, it would not record medical data, but would become the black box for this entire farce. I slipped the device into my shirt pocket, turned on the recording mode, then stepped out into the hallway. In the living room below, Clara perched on the sofa, her live stream camera aimed straight at the wall where my oil painting hung. "Everyone, this is my father-in-law's villa with a true ocean view. If anyone wants to rent it, inbox me. I'll arrange it." Their friends shrieked with laughter. Some even waved at the lens. I moved closer, letting my main phone sit in my breast pocket, its camera facing outward. The lens quietly captured every face, every beer can on the table, every sandy shoe thrown up on the leather chairs, and no one noticed. Seeing me glance over, Clara forced a smile. "Mr. Leonard, don't be so stern. This live stream lets the whole world see that Sophie has a happy family." I turned away without replying. In the kitchen, Martin was cracking open another case of beer, pouring as he spoke loudly. "Life is easy when you've got a rich old man. Instead of paying for a resort, I just make one phone call and the villa opens up." Laughter erupted. Someone shouted, "Cheers to Leonard," and the whole group lifted their cans. I stopped in the doorway, my heart stabbing with pain. Every word was a dull blade twisting into my chest. The phone in my pocket kept filming silently, the mic catching every single word. Late at night, the friends began to get drunk and the music still thumped. I walked out to the backyard, moonlight glinting across the pool in small ripples. From the corner of the yard, I stood still, letting the pocket camera continue, recording a guy reading right into the rosebed I had just planted, a couple making out noisily on the shades by the pool. I knew these images would not only be a personal humiliation, but evidence in court. The villa turned into a disorderly gathering place against the owner's will. Near midnight, I returned to the study. In my shirt pocket, the hours-long recording still ran, a red light blinking. I plugged the device into the laptop and saved the file into a folder named Villa Evidence. That folder now had 3 tiers: financial records, images, and audio. A surgery that needed no scalpel, but required proof. I added a line to the log. Exhibit A, financial records. Exhibit B, photos. Exhibit C, audio. I sat up straight, a familiar feeling rushing back, like those long nights in the operating room. White lights glaring, my hand holding the scalpel, everything precise to each beat. The difference was that this time I was not operating on a patient's heart, but laying open the greed of those with my blood in name only. Outside, Martin's laughter drifted in. "Leah won't dare throw us out. He needs to keep the image of the model grandpa for Sophie. Just enjoy it." His friends clapped and whooped him. I closed my eyes, drew a long breath, and heard the beep-beep of a monitor in my head. Right. I would not evict them immediately. A good surgeon does not cut before seeing the vessels clearly. I would let them expose themselves, and I would have everything until there was no room for denial. I closed the file and turned on the desk lamp. On a clean sheet, I wrote the final line before lying down. Day 1, begin evidence collection. Objective, protect Sophie. Protect the truth. The next morning, early sunlight poured through the glass, blazing over the smeared stains on the marble floor. I stepped into the hallway. The stale stench of beer and cigarettes clung like a weary fog over the entire villa. In the living room, Clara had rolled out a yoga mat right on the Persian rug, phone fixed on a tripod, her voice syrupy. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I'll guide a beach view yoga flow at this very oceanfront villa." Behind her, I clearly saw Sophie curled in the corner of the sofa, eyes still heavy with sleep, dragged in as an unwilling backdrop for the frame. Martin stood by the kitchen, pouring coffee into my porcelain mug, drinking as he told his friends, "See, where else is this fancy? One call and the million-dollar villa opens. We're living like a resort without spending a cent." The friends clapped and whistled. One filmed Martin raising the cup like a general declaring victory. I stood in the doorway, my hand clenched white. The way they turned the villa into a film set, a stage for social media, and Sophie into mere scenery weighed on me. I had recorded enough last night. The drunken laughter, the insults, Clara's live stream shots flaunting the villa as if it were hers. But this morning made me decide outright. I would not let this farce continue another day. I stepped back into the study, shut the door, and opened the laptop. The night's recording still sat on the screen, Martin's voice echoing. "Leah won't dare throw us out." I hit stop, feeling like I was listening to a patient's heart on the monitor. Knowing I had to act immediately, I took my phone and found the number for Rachel Harper, the attorney who had helped me with the medical insurance dispute during Evelyn's treatment. Rachel was tough, cool, and not easily swayed by emotional performances. The phone rang and her crisp voice came through. "Harper Law Office, this is Rachel." I lowered my voice, keeping steady. "Rachel, I need to meet right away. It concerns ownership rights and trespass. They are in my house, 18 people without invitation. I have evidence." The line paused for a few seconds, and then Rachel spoke quickly. "You're at the newly purchased villa, correct? Stay calm. I'll be there within 1 hour. No arguing, no violence. Just keep preserving the all evidence." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Outside, Clara shifted poses, arms lifted to the sky, her voice lilting. "Inhale, exhale. Feel the sun's energy over the ocean." The waves lapped softly by the porch. But inside me another tide rose far more violently, the tide of resolve. Sophie looked at me as I passed the living room, those tender brown eyes briefly lighting as if pleading. I set my hand on her shoulder and murmured, "Don't worry, Grandpa will handle it." Martin scoffed, clapping my shoulder. "Don't stress, Sophie Leo. The kid needs fun, not an old man's dry rules." I held his gaze for a single beat, then turned away without answering. A doctor used to life and death pressure doesn't need to shout. I had chosen another route to let the law speak for me. Back in the study, I prepared an email attaching the recording, photos, and the public clips of Clara's live stream. In the subject line, I wrote, "Evidence, unauthorized occupation of villa." The cursor blinked, and for the first time in years, I felt I wasn't alone. Rachel would be the scalpel, and I would prepare the chart. The legal operation was about to begin. Rachel arrived just as the sun climbed high, light flashing off the silver car windows. She stepped out in a navy suit with sharp creases, thin frames catching the sea's glare. No small talk, she gave me a single nod. "Leonard, take me in." I opened the gate. Inside, Clara was still live streaming. Now, a morning smoothie segment. "Hi, everyone. Today we've got a special guest, our lawyer." Before she could invent a line, Rachel cut in, voice like steel. "I'm not a guest. I'm Mr. Harlow's attorney." The room froze for a beat. Then Martin gave a dry laugh, trying to regain footing. "A lawyer? This is a family business. Why bring a lawyer who sues his own son-in-law?" Rachel didn't look at him. She opened her case and laid out several sheets. "Here are copies of the financial records, audio, and photographs from last night. You were inside someone else's house without permission, gathering a large group and causing property damage. Under Florida law, that is trespassing and can be handled criminally if the owner requests." Clara cut in, voice still sweet. "Ms. Rachel, he must be misunderstanding. This is a family home. Grandpa wants to be strict, so he's making it seem serious." But actually, Rachel turned and met her eyes, gazed flat and cold. "Family is not a license for possession. You just live-streamed, offering this villa for rent. I have that video. How do you intend to explain that in court?" Clara paused and hurriedly shut off the camera. The friends around the kitchen table began lowering their voices. A few whispered and tried to slip away. Martin growled, but I saw his hand tremble slightly. "What do you gain from this, Leo? Evelyn would be ashamed to see you bring a lawyer against her own husband." Hearing my daughter's name tightened my chest, but Rachel gave him no room. "Do not use the deceased to justify yourself. The issue is your current conduct, and I advise you not to mention Evelyn again, because every word is being preserved." I saw Martin falter, worry flickering in his eyes. He turned to his friends. "Don't worry, they're bluffing. We have a right to be here. He gave us money, helped us before, which means he implicitly accepted us as family." Rachel set the folder on the glass table. The rasp of paper on glass rang sharp. "Wrong. Past financial support is not a contract granting rights to use a property. This villa was purchased under Mr. Harlow's own name. I have the deed notarized less than 2 months ago. You and your wife are merely exploiting goodwill, and if desired, I can call the police today to file a report." The air in the villa changed completely. The laughter vanished, leaving a dense silence. Sophie ran down from upstairs, teddy in hand, bewildered by the scene. Clara grabbed for her. "Sophie, go back to your room." But I stepped forward, gathered my granddaughter in, my voice low but firm. "You'll stay here with Grandpa. No one will use you as a shield anymore." Rachel gave a slight nod, as if confirming that this was the precise point she needed. Martin clenched his fist, forcing a threatening tone. "Lo, are you sure you want to go this far? Do you want Sophie to grow up thinking you threw her father out?" Rachel closed her case and stepped directly in front of Martin, her voice low but clear. "No, Sophie will grow up knowing. Her grandfather protects the truth, sets boundaries, and understands that love does not mean being exploited." Martin choked back his words. None of the friends dared speak. The air felt like an operating room, taut in the breath before the scalpel touches the heart. I felt my heartbeat steady, not the panicked rhythm of a victim, but the calm rhythm of a doctor used to life and death moments. Rachel turned to me and spoke softly, but loud enough for everyone. "Leonard, do you want me to call the police right now?" I looked around the room. The beer strewn everywhere, the stains smeared across the furniture. Clara's head bowed. Martin flushed and furious. I drew a deep breath and answered, "Not yet. Let them decide for themselves. I want to see whether there is any self-respect left in them." Rachel nodded, then set her phone on the table with the number 911, ready to dial, the screen glowing like a warning. "You have 10 minutes to leave this place. If not, we will press the button." Without another word, a heavy silence spread through the villa, broken only by the sound of waves beyond the glass. Steady and patient like justice drawing near, the silence in the villa felt like a block of ice about to crack. Rachel's phone glared on the table. 911 queued up, its cold light washing over tense faces. One of Martin's friends coughed, quietly grabbed his backpack and whispered, "I'm not getting involved." "Let's go." Immediately, 2 or 3 others followed, scooping up towels and beer cans, slinking toward the door like uninvited partygoers who see police on the horizon. Slap, slap went their flip-flops. The door thudded and figures vanished off the porch. The chaos in the living room was cut in half, but the tension doubled. Martin gave a harsh laugh, his voice cracking with anger. "Cowards. All we have to do is stand firm. This old man won't dare do anything." Clara still sat on the rug, clutching Sophie like a lifeline, her eyes darting between me and Rachel. I looked straight at my former son-in-law and said low and even, "Martin, I've let you speak disrespectfully for 6 years. But today, in my house, in front of my granddaughter, not anymore." He lunged closer, eyes bloodshot from a sleepless, drunken night. "You think you're strong? If you throw me out, the whole world will know how cruel you are. I'll tell everyone you abandoned your family and made your granddaughter live in poverty." Rachel stepped between us, her heels striking the stone. "Mr. Martin, do not test the patience of the law. Everything you've just said has been recorded. If Mr. Harlow chooses, we will submit it as evidence of threats and defamation." Martin faltered, swallowing his rage, his fist tightening. Dose Clara jumped in, voice trembling but still syrupy. "Miss Rachel Leonard, don't make this bigger. Sophie needs her father. She needs family. If you call the police today, the child will be hurt." I bent and embraced Sophie, smoothing her hair, still scented with sun and sea salt. "She needs love, Clara, but love is not an excuse for greed. Evelyn told me to care for Sophie. I will, but not by letting her watch her father turn her grandfather's home into a playground." Sophie looked up at me with wide brown eyes, hugging her teddy tighter. I saw trust and fear both there. Martin barked a dry laugh. "You think you can take her from me? What can a grandpa do? Unless you want to drag the family into court." Rachel picked up her phone, her voice even and cold as steel. "If we must, we will. And in court, I have more than $300,000 in financial proof of your freeloading, along with Clara's live stream videos advertising this villa as if it were hers. Consider whom the judge will believe." The words cut through the last shell of their arrogance. Clara burst into tears and tugged Martin's hand. "Stop it. I don't want to be handcuffed in front of Sophie. Let's go, Martin." But Martin still glared, cornered like a trapped animal. He looked around the villa, then out at the green-blue sea beyond the glass, and ground out, "You think you've won, Lau? This is only the beginning. You'll regret it." He yanked Clara's hand and pulled Sophie. The child whimpered, "Grandpa," her hand reaching for me, but he dragged her along. I lunged forward and blocked the threshold, my voice ringing like a bell. "Sophie stays." The room held its breath. Clara froze. Sophie burst into tears and clung to me. Martin roared, "You have no right." Rachel stood at my side and held out a set of papers. "Mr. Harlow has temporary guardianship based on a notarized letter of intent left by Evelyn. The court issued a temporary guardianship order to the grandfather. I have the certified copy right here. Would you like to contest that in front of the police?" Martin reeled as if punched. He looked at Clara, then at Sophie, and let go. Clara covered her face, choking back sobs as she pulled Martin away, leaving behind an open suitcase and soaked towels on the floor. The door slammed and only the sea's steady thud remained. Rachel set the papers on the table and looked at me. "You've drawn the line, Leonard. From here they only have the legal road. I sat on the sofa with Sophie still locked in my arms, her hiccuped sobs blending with the surf, reminding me the battle had only begun. But at least today I kept what mattered most: my granddaughter and the truth that kindness must have limits. Just one day after Martin and Clara left the villa, my morning began with a phone screaming non-stop and dozens of new notifications. I opened the screen and my heart sank at the sight of Sophie, brown hair tousled, eyes puffy, on Facebook. Martin's post read, "My daughter was separated from her father because of the pride of a wealthy grandfather. We only wanted to be with Sophie, but instead of love, we were humiliated and thrown out like strangers who still believes in family." More than 200 shares, hundreds of pitying comments. "Poor little girl, selfish old man, cruel to split father and child." I read every line, my chest burning. Alan had asked me to care for Sophie, and now Sophie was being turned into a living shield for lies. Rachel arrived around noon with a thick file and an unsurprised face. I expected this. Social media is the favorite stage for people who like to play the victim. I handed her my phone. She skimmed and nodded. "This is an emotional gambit, Leonard." But he forgot that emotion does not stand against evidence. I opened the drawer and took out the file I had prepared. Bank statements, tuition receipts, the house deposit check, even the small transfers from Martin's midnight calls. Rachel stacked them neatly, then pulled a USB drive from her case. "Last night I extracted all of Clara's live streams, plus the videos of their friends trashing your house, including where she called this villa a resort for rent. This will be a perfect counterweight." I sat and buried my head in my hands. "But Rachel, what about Sophie? I'm afraid she'll be dragged into the storm. I don't want her to grow up thinking her grandpa and her father fought in front of the world." Rachel set a firm hand on my shoulder. "What matters most is that Sophie sees who protects her. We're not fighting out of wounded pride. We're proving the truth still exists. She will understand. If not today, then later." I looked out the window where the waves still rolled steadily. Part of me wanted to walk away, shutter the villa, vanish from the internet, but the image of Sophie reaching out and calling Grandpa tethered me to my chair. I drew a deep breath. "All right, what's the next step?" Rachel opened her case and took out a prepared packet. "We're filing counterclaims, not only for trespass, but for defamation and fabrication. You have more than $300,000 in financial evidence, plus Clara's videos, plus the threats I recorded. We will attach it all. But I need you to do one more thing. Remain silent online. Don't reply. Don't comment. Let me and the evidence speak." I nodded, though a sting remained in my chest. I reopened Facebook and read a few more comments. "Sophie is so unfortunate. This grandpa must only love money. Wealth makes people cold." I set the phone down, my fingers trembling. Rachel looked me in the eye. "Leonard, remember, doctors like you save patients with discipline and patience. This is also a surgery. The patient is justice." That evening the villa was quiet again. I brewed black tea and sat beside Sophie as she drew. She handed me a crayon picture, a house by the sea, with Grandpa, with her, and with her mother Evelyn watching from the sky. I swallowed hard and held my granddaughter close. In my head, Rachel's words from the afternoon echoed, "Truth needs evidence, but love needs patience." I knew the storm was not over. Martin had baited the crowd, but I held the scalpel, and this time I would operate decisively. No shaking, no retreat. 1 week after that noisy morning in the villa, the local newspaper, the Florida Times-Union, ran a bold headline. "A retired heart surgeon exploited by his former son-in-law and new wife for more than $300,000, and his villa turned into a party den." Below it were a series of photos. Clara live streaming and calling the villa a resort for rent. Friends vomiting into my newly planted rose bed. Furniture covered with beer cans. The article cited the financial records Rachel had filed with the court. Each payment for tuition, medical care, housing, everything clearly documented. That day, I opened my computer and hundreds of comments poured in under the post. The voices that had criticized me suddenly changed. I didn't expect that to be the truth. This elderly man helped so much and was betrayed. Martin and Clara are freeloaders. I read them feeling both relieved and bitter. Public opinion is like the tide. Yesterday it heaped all the blame on me. Today it pours its anger on them. But at least this time, Sophie was no longer turned into a human shield. Rachel called me, her voice decisive. "Leonard, the filings are in the system. The first hearing will be within 3 weeks. The press has covered it now. He can't twist the story anymore." I looked at Sophie drawing at the table. This time her picture had just Grandpa and her in a brightly lit villa with no strangers. She handed it to me and whispered, "Grandpa, don't be sad. I'm still here with you." I was choked with emotion and could only hug her. In the afternoon, Martin posted a rebuttal video, his voice shaky with anger. "It's all staged. They want to smear us and steal Sophie from me. He's just a rich, lonely man trying to swallow his granddaughter's whole life." But this time, the comments turned on him. "You burned through all the money he gave. Stop dragging the child into this. What kind of man freeloaded's off his father-in-law?" In less than an hour, the video was flooded with criticism. Clara went live to apologize, sobbing. "I only wanted to make fun content. I didn't think it would hurt the family." But viewers no longer believed her. People piled in to remind her of the clip where she called the villa a resort for rent, grabbing screenshots and spreading them everywhere. I took no joy in their collapse. I only felt the fatigue after a long surgery when the patient is out of danger, but the operating room is still strewn with instruments. I sat in the study as Rachel came in with a new stack of documents. "Here is the official summons. They have to appear in court, and we have all the evidence." I looked up and asked quietly, "Will Sophie have to face the court?" Rachel shook her head. "No, we will protect her. You just need to be ready." I nodded, knowing the legal battle was only beginning. That night I stood on the porch, the sea wind cutting cold. In my mind, there was no rap music, no mocking laughter, only the waves, steady, like a reminder that justice moved slowly but surely. Evelyn, my daughter, was perhaps smiling somewhere to see Sophie protected. And I, the man who had held a scalpel through thousands of heart cases, was now laying open greed in the middle of my own life. When the court day arrived, I wore the gray suit that had hung in my closet for years, shoes polished until they reflected my tired face. Entering the courtroom, I smelled varnished wood and heard the rustle of papers like the sounds before a major operation. Rachel walked beside me, her face as calm as ever, and I felt my heart beat steady, not from fear, but because the wait had reached its end. Martin sat across the aisle, suit hanging loose from the weight he had lost, eyes darting. Clara was beside him, carefully made up, but with trembling hands, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Sophie was not present by the court's decision, but her image was clear in my mind, those brown eyes shining as when she gave me the drawing of the house by the sea. The judge struck the gavel and said, "Begin." The prosecutor summarized, and then Rachel rose to present the evidence. The financial files stretched across the table: $12,000 for tuition, $90,000 for medical expenses, totaling nearly $300,000 in support. Next came the video of Clara's live stream, her voice ringing out, "This is my oceanfront villa. If you want to rent it, inbox me." Friends whooped with laughter. Beer cans rolled on the floor, everything visible on the large courtroom screen. Some attendees shook their heads. Others whispered. Rachel continued and played the audio, Martin's mocking voice clear as day. "The old man won't dare throw us out. He needs to keep the image of the model grandpa." The laughter that followed cut like a blade. But this time it didn't cut me. It cut them in front of justice. When their attorney's turn came, Martin stood, voice trembling as he forced tears. "I only wanted my daughter Sophie to have a family. Her grandpa turned me into a freeloader, but I was just trying to be a father." Clara nodded along, adding, "It was all a misunderstanding. We never meant to take over, just wanted to keep Evelyn's memory." Rachel replied calmly, "If it was about keeping memories, why did Miss Clara call the villa a resort for rent? If it was about caring for Sophie, why did Mr. Martin burn through hundreds of thousands of dollars on failed projects and partying?" The judge struck the gavel for silence and turned the file. His voice was low and precise. "The court recognizes all evidence submitted by Mr. Leonard Harlow. Martin Keene and Clara Keene exploited him financially, trespassed on his property, and committed defamation on social media. Regarding guardianship, pursuant to the notarized wishes of Evelyn Harlow, temporary care of Sophie is granted to the grandfather until further order." The courtroom stirred. Martin collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. Clara turned away, no longer sobbing, only avoiding everyone's eyes. I sat upright and took a deep breath, feeling like the monitor in the operating room had returned to a stable rhythm after a long surgery. Not the joy of victory, just the relief of a patient out of crisis. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun blazed, and a sea breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. Rachel squeezed my shoulder lightly. "You did it, Leonard. And Sophie will know who truly protects her." I nodded, eyes on the horizon. In my heart, I whispered to Evelyn, "Rest easy, I kept my promise." Sophie is safe. That evening in the villa, I sat with Sophie. She asked, "Grandpa, will we keep drawing our house tomorrow?" I smiled and handed her the colored pencils. "Yes, but this time add a rose garden. And remember, this house will always have a place for you." The sound of waves on the porch was no longer drowned by rap or raucous laughter. Only a calm rhythm like the background music for a new beginning. When the hearing closed, I stepped out with Rachel, the sea wind carrying salt as if washing away the grime of years of being exploited. Martin and Clara might still try to wriggle out, but the truth had been entered into the court record, and from now on, every move they made would face the law. Most important of all, Sophie had been placed in safety, with temporary guardianship granted to me, exactly as in Evelyn's notarized letter, and in accordance with American law. Justice is not blind vengeance. It is the restoration of boundaries, so the greedy learn their limits and a child can grow up in genuine love. I lost my daughter, but I will not lose my faith or my granddaughter's future. If you have ever been exploited by your own family, will you choose to endure in silence or stand up, gather evidence, and let justice speak? Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly want to know. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell because there are many more stories I will tell. Stories proving that in this country the law may be slow, but it has never abandoned those who need it.